get outside for sort of 20 minutes. Just do that every single day. You'll be amazed how quickly that becomes a habit and how beneficial that is.
Welcome to Bigger Than the Hustle podcast, where I bring you real conversations with entrepreneurs on how they live their life outside their business. We deep dive into the energies, the motivations, the habits, the disciplines, and the mindsets which make them successful in their life, which in turn leads to success in their business. Now, today I've got a fitness expert with me, Matt, we're going to sort of deep dive into his entrepreneurial journey, his fitness knowledge, and a few other things about life. So, hi Matt, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me on.
Not at all. So just a quick one, Matt, if you can just introduce yourself with a short sort of bio into you, and then we can sort of go into the conversation from there.
Yeah, sure. Not a problem at all. So my name is Matt. I'm the owner of Prima Fitness. So I own a physical gym facility, which does one-to-one personal training. I was a professional ballet dancer for 10 years of my life. And since transitioning from that, I've gone into more of the fitness space and running my own business there.
Cool. Perfect. Now, that was quite an interesting intro. So you've got ballet and you've got fitness. Obviously, I know with ballet, you have to be super fit anyway. You know, that's the basis of an elegant ballet dancer. Even though it looks really elegant, so like a swan, I guess, where very elegant on top, but the little feet are underneath the water. It's a lot of work to keep that in control. So now, you mentioned, so if we go into fitness first, now during this time where we're unprecedented times and everyone's had to sort of adapt and their roles and positions about not just in business but in life as well. What sort of things have happened to you during this time for you as a fitness instructor through, I know you've opened a studio recently, so if you can just go through that, because I think it can be quite helpful for a lot of entrepreneurs going through a similar thing right now.
Yeah, sure, not a problem at all. So like most sort of trainers, I started out as delivering face-to-face one-to-one sessions. Probably the beginning of this year, of 2020, I moved some of that online anyway, so started to build up a small online client base. But alongside that, I bought my own facilities. Yeah, so February the 7th, I bought my own personal training studio, got the keys to that. I think we're open about 4 weeks, and then obviously lockdown hit in the UK. So it was a case of sort of pivoting quite quickly upon that. I had that small online client base that I was, providing service to them. And it just meant that a lot of the people that I would normally see face to face or would come into my gym, it was how I could best help them online. So it was sort of a double-edged sword really of obviously face to face, we couldn't work as much anymore, but people were taking sort of unprecedented care and attention to their own physical health and well-being. And at this time, it's seemingly quite an important thing. So the demand was there, but it was obviously how we provided that assistance and coaching to our clients and new clients at a time where, we were going through change where we couldn't meet up physically or face-to-face anymore. So it was just about adapting to that situation really, but providing the same level of attention and service that we were providing in a face-to-face environment.
And, you talked about you bought your own place. Now, that's a huge move for anyone, right? When you're jumping right in with 2 feet at that point, aren't you? You know that this is your future. You're going to make an investment in yourself by buying a place, and you want to provide the service and the quality of service, which hopefully will take you through to your old age in terms of, providing a basis not just for you, for your family and, everyone around you. Now, 4 weeks into that dream, obviously things changed. What's your choice? As a fitness instructor, you've always, presumably you've done a lot of face-to-face anyway, with maybe a little bit of online. What's your preference in terms of, as a fitness instructor? Do you prefer online? Do you prefer face-to-face? Or do you can just mix it up as needed?
I like a mixture of the two, to be honest. I do like being in that gym environment of interacting with people face-to-face and providing that service to them and watching them train and advance, their skills and techniques, and being able to see that week on week is an amazing feeling. But equally, there's something about online and when you can sort of scale that and provide service, that somehow you're almost in people's back pockets every single day rather than seeing them for 1 hour, 2 hours a week or whatever it is. So you can almost provide a different level of service, even higher level of service in some respects from an online offering, especially when you can start to automate certain elements of that actually you're almost on that a closer journey with people online, even though you're not seeing them in, face to face or in a physical environment. So I like a mixture of the two, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. We might get onto this later. I'm obviously a father to a young child. So the flexibility that online training provides me is unparalleled. Face-to-face PT generally, not always, but is a little bit antisocial hours. You're looking at working with people before and after work as much as you are sort of during. So it can become a little bit antisocial from that side. So the online training aspect that can be, done at any time, that there are advantages to that from a sort of work-life balance, I guess.
Now, if we go back to your young days, where does this energy of enjoying and wanting to teach fitness, and where does that come from, and what's your story into fitness?
So I think I've always been sort of very active. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, so yeah, always had sort of siblings to play with and chase around after and probably get bullied by or whatever. So I've always been very active. I think from the age of I was about 5 or 6. My mum's into the art; she enjoys watching it. Was never sort of a performer or anything herself, but enjoyed watching on TV. I've always had a lot of energy, I'm not going to lie. So I was one of those annoying little kids that would, bounce around the house. And my mum was watching ballet one day and I just sort of sat down and sat still for 2 hours and watched it intently. And I don't remember this that clearly, but my mum does. And she sort of, from there says that I sort of pestered her for months that I wanted to go and I wanted to start doing ballet, et cetera, et cetera. So about 6 months later, she sort of caved in, took me to my first class. And I never really looked back from there, really. But I think sport has always been a big part of that as well, and activity and exercise. Obviously, I took dance very seriously from a very young age, but my uncle's a tennis coach, so I always played tennis to quite a good level. I always enjoyed playing sports at school, so I've always had that sort of love of physical activity, exercise, pushing myself, taking on new challenges. And I think that comes as much from my family as it does from just this sort of inherent nature in me, I guess.
And, ballet, when we talk about ballet, right? So being a boy or a young boy, the masculine energy sort of tends towards, like the wrestling, the football and those kind of sports where it's quite physical, etc. So ballet is an interesting one because even though I appreciate it so much now as an older man, looking at the skills and the technique that's required to, create that elegance, back then, I almost saw it like it was too feminine. It was very, very articulate the way it happened. So it's interesting that you picked up on that and you're enjoying it. I admire that because you're going against the norm as such, isn't it? Societal norms saying, there's certain sports for men and there's certain sports for female. Obviously, that's changing a lot now. Every sport is for every, whether it be female or male. But then I know when we were growing up, you're obviously a lot younger than me, so I'm sort of mid-40s, so, let's go back 30 years or something. There wasn't this sort of equality that we have now. So I think it's huge and I think it's brilliant, especially for the younger generation coming up now, that anything is possible in terms of which way they want to go. But it's interesting that you chose that option and you chose to pursue it. Because there's a time when, at what point was it interest? So you say, I want to go, and saying, actually, I enjoy this and I'm going to carry this on. Because I know even like with my kids, they'll start things and then it's almost sort of quickly forgotten, and then they'll move on to the next. So what was it about you and your thinking that allowed you to continue with the ballet and then move into fitness? Yeah,
so I think, again, as a 6-year-old, I wasn't thinking this is going to be my career or my job or whatever, but, I got into it. And 3 or 4 years later, even around 10 or 11, I realised that I enjoyed it, which is obviously key for any sort of youngster getting into any sort of activity or whatever. I enjoyed it fundamentally, but also I wasn't bad at it. I was quite good. I was quite committed to it. So already about 10 or 11, I started going to sort of the Royal Ballet Junior Associates and started training at a level that was slightly more advanced. And I think the two of them just continually went hand in hand. And it wasn't until I was sort of in my mid-teens that I was like, okay, this is getting quite, serious now, which is great. And maybe this is a long-term career prospect or I might make it as a professional. But that was never the intention as a 6 or 7 year old. I just sort of getting further and further along the line and developing with it technically and getting accepted into sort of better, coaching pedigree and things like that. So yeah, I think around 10 or 11, I realized, okay, there's something here. And then definitely by mid-teens, it was all I could see myself doing from a sort of professional level. I was very fortunate. I had great support from my family, from my friends. As you say, when I grew up, dance wasn't, a male activity, as it were. I was pre-Billy Elliot. I was, there wasn't those sorts of role models necessarily in the world. I think, as you say now, fantastically, is a lot more accepted in this country. Obviously, a program like Strictly Come Dancing, although a different dance genre, is now very popular. It's all a lot more accepted than maybe it was when I was at school. I went to an all-boys school.
Oh, wow.
But I think, again, going back to what I said before, I was very interested in sport as well. And, if you're doing ballet, but then, beating maybe people that you go to school with at tennis and playing football and all of these things, some of those stereotypes were maybe harder to sort of throw at me a little bit. And again, that comes back to, I had great support from friends around me. And then, I had 2 older brothers who've always sort of accepted what I've done and have never sort of bullied me or teased me about it. So I think that is very fortunate as well. And that is a privileged position. I had a lot of friends that I grew up with dancing wise that weren't that lucky. And some of it was probably young, thinly veiled sort of homophobia. Some of it was just people not accepting what dance is, the difficulty of dance. So I was very fortunate, and I do know that now, that I was very well looked after by friends and family and the people around me. So it's important.
Yeah. And I think the family conversation we will go into later, because I think it's so important that a lot of people hear about the family support and the hands beneath us to allow us to do the work that we do with full support. Because the right energy going into that allows us to be the people we're meant to be, to show up in the world the way we're meant to show up, right? Now, if we just switch back to fitness again. Now, what's your view on fitness and the mind-body connection? Because everyone sort of gears fitness towards physical fitness, so your weights, your running, your movement. But recently, I've been hearing more about the mind connection with that as well, in terms of sort of the chemical balances in the brain and keeping that in check and in level. And my own fitness is running. So I'm a runner. I'm training for the New York Marathon at the moment. So hopefully I'll be going there next year with this. Hopefully things have settled.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah. I didn't bother entering this year because otherwise it's never going to happen. So next year, and I've always, and why I got into running was I was going through quite a dark time in my life. In terms of business, in terms of money, things like that. And I found that seemed to level off the anxiety, almost depression at that point. And it seemed to settle all the chemical imbalances in my brain, and it just kept things steady. And that was the first real experience of where fitness and mind, for me personally, really helped me. And I've never stopped since. That was 8 to 10 years ago, and I've not stopped since. So what's your view on sort of the mind-body connection, how it can help people, not just physically, but mentally as well?
No, I 100% agree. Obviously, there is the whole physical side of it, and there are massive health benefits to that. But even just ignoring that, as you say, the sort of, you can go very deep into the science of this, but the benefits that you get from the endorphin rush, how you feel about yourself, as you say, stress reliever, anxiety, all of those things. And I think that has been very apparent in the last, during this current pandemic, this current crisis, how people, I think, have really turned to exercise to help benefit their mental health if they're maybe a bit more isolated or struggling to deal with this current pandemic and situation. I think people are using health and fitness as a real crux to help them get through that. And I think that's a reason why we're seeing such a demand in online health and fitness services. I know Apple made a big announcement yesterday. One of the biggest companies in the world doesn't branch into that unless there is a demand. And I think the more people are noticing, similar to yourself, that connection between, if I look after my physical self, my mental health generally becomes a lot healthier. I think people are becoming aware of that, and I think that's a very positive thing. I think even big corporations and companies are seeing that employee wellness and employee well-being is really, really important in terms of productivity, in terms of, lack of sick days, people's mental health. I think maybe 40, 50 years ago, the workforce, if people were off work for whatever reason, it was coughs and colds and sniffles and people were off for 2 or 3 days. And now big companies are seeing that if people were taking leave from work due to sickness, it's due to lower back pain or mental health. And these conditions are a lot longer to help sort of solve. So I think companies have a prerogative now to take a deeper understanding in the mental and physical well-beings of exercise. And that's not that everyone has to, run marathons or compete in physique shows or powerlifting shows or play sport at an elite level. This can be the most rudimental thing of going out for a 30-minute walk. It can be some gentle stretching. Something like that can have a massive effect on people's well-being from a mental state as much as a physical state.
Yeah. And I think, with my wife, so she's a fitness professional as well with prenatal postnatal. So she, helps ladies before and after birth. So her knowledge and her experience has helped me hugely. And even though our kids probably hate it, they have to get up and they have to do some form of physical exercise first thing before they sit down and do their work or whatever. Because it's funny, both their schools opened last week and they're both at home again for 2 weeks. Yeah. There's someone in there, and I think it's going to be a recurring story this year for a lot of parents probably listening.
Definitely,
So we've always put fitness and health quite high up on the agenda. And if we can do, for us, if we can do it first thing in the morning, it sets our day off well. It keeps us balanced during the day, and it's putting the importance not just on book knowledge, but life knowledge and body knowledge and understanding this. It's all balance, isn't it? It's not just pushing yourself, getting up and reading a book or getting down to your work. Those things will help you through life as well, right? And trying to put that energy into them early, because my daughter's 14 and my son is 9, so I know growing up myself, my dad used to exercise a little bit, but he never pushed on to us. He never said anything to us because I suppose they didn't know. My mum's never trained in her life. It's never been their first generation into this country. They're immigrants into this country. So for us, we live here and it's important for us. But for them, really, it wasn't, because they just had to be here, graft and get a foundation of life.
And I think generationally things have changed. It used to be a lot more. I look at my sort of grandparents and my parents, they used to play sort of team sports on the weekend or something like that. The idea of going to a gym, I mean, they didn't really exist as a business model, let alone a sort of place where you would go. Even if you played sport at a good level, it was like do some sort of press ups on the weekend. Whereas now, I mean, gyms are a multi-billion pound business and it's seen as an activity that people do, having gym memberships and all of that. But that wasn't normal even 20 years ago, let alone further than that. So yeah, I think that's a big generational change. And again, my son's nearly 2 and it's what they're used to. It's what they're used to seeing. He sees me maybe do some exercise. He sees me cook healthy food at home. He wants to join in with the exercise. He wants to join in with the food prep now. And it's just his way of learning to sort of role play a little bit, but he's seeing those healthy habits already, and it's quite normal for us to do these things. And I think hopefully he'll grow up with that becoming quite normal to him.
And I think it's important, Matt, a really good point you made just there. It's creating the environment that they see as normal, right? So when they leave home, when they go to, if they go off, they live with someone, they go to university, they go traveling, whatever it is, those are habits that are created young. So therefore, they don't see as alien as, I remember for me, I had to learn about all these things, but for them, it's going to be normal because we've instilled that in them. And I want their environment to, create some importance on these things because it's huge. I see the benefit and hopefully they see the benefit as well. The thing that's really griped me about this whole pandemic, especially from the government, is it's all been, the thing in terms of protecting ourselves, there's a virus out there and we all have to play our part, right? Irrespective of what our views are on that. The face masks, the hand gloves, sanitizer, etc. But there's been very little information in terms of, rather than trying to stop it from happening, what can you do personally to help you in terms of keeping yourself fit, keeping yourself healthy, learning about healthy habits, learning about food, learning about, nutrition, learning about mindset, as opposed to just saying, wear a mask, wear gloves, and then you'll be fine, And that's, I think, is really bright me. There's been no real fitness experts on the national media daily saying Have you done your exercise? Have you done your training? Have you started thinking about these things? Because for me, it's always been about, stopping it from happening as opposed to happening and then dealing with it as it happens, So I know probably like you said, the gyms were probably the last to open, right? They've only sort of been allowed to open over the last few weeks. And again, what kind of message is that putting out there to the general public? You can go out to restaurants and eat what you want, but you can't go to a gym to try and get fit and get healthy. What's your views or opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of the sort of circles that I run in on social media and just, business entrepreneurs, etc., are all in the sort of fitness space or dance space, and two sectors that have been massively neglected, overlooked: theatre, culture, and sort of fitness. The irony wasn't lost on any of us, especially when Boris came out with this sort of obesity drive and things like that. The fact that the pubs opened 6 weeks before the gyms. I mean, like, the irony amongst the fitness community hasn't been lost there. Even a month's worth of, eat out to help out, which was great for that sector. But from a health point of view, I knew people that were going out, 3 times a week for big meals because it's half price. But a little bit ironic that we're supposed to be sort of taking better care of our health. Even I understand there is an economic argument and what the hospitality sector provides and things like that. But even on a base level, things like the VAT reduction in the hospitality section, but no VAT reduction in a gym environment, for example. So I'm still expected to pay my VAT, but and I've suffered as much as any restaurateur, but they get this VAT cut break. It does, it's a little bit funny from the government that they want to, be seen to be promoting a healthy lifestyle. I mean, Boris himself had COVID, has made a big, announcements about getting healthier. I've employed a personal trainer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, your policies to back that up aren't necessarily showing that. They look more like they've been made from an economic decision and the certain tax duties that you might receive from certain industries, rather than let's get our country healthier and fitter, and how can we encourage people to do that? I mean, a sort of an eat out to help out gym equivalent. Why don't we give everyone a half price gym membership or £10 off this? There's been none of that. It's all been very much hospitality driven, get back to the pubs, etc. So, and I'd imagine, looking a bit into the future, as this develops, if things do take a downward trend again, it'll be the gyms that shut before the pubs. I mean, I can pretty much guarantee that. So yeah, that's the way we're heading, and the way the sort of, government is acting towards us as a fitness sector. Yeah.
And I guess the empathy we can have as human beings and as people is, no one really knows, right? Everyone's just doing the best they can with the knowledge and the information they have, right? And that's what we do, right? So that's the empathy I have with the government. Say they are just human as well, right? And who knows where the information's coming from, or what knowledge, or what kind of pressures they have behind them. And no one's been in this situation. We can stand in hindsight and look back and say, I wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have done that. But put in the same position with the same energy and the same motivations that they have, we probably would have. We just don't know, because we only have to look at our own little lives. But when you're dealing with, 70 million people and trying to do the best for everyone, it's like Marmite, isn't it? Some people are going to be happy and some people are not.
No, I agree. This is completely unprecedented times. We've never seen anything like that. And I generally, on the whole, I will admit, I think they've done a good job where
I think so.
Generally across the whole process. I mean, you're never going to get it perfect. This is a completely unique situation. So yeah, there is not a massive gripe, but there is just the odd hint of irony occasionally between their announcements from me with my fitness hat on and my ex-dancer hat on, about those two sort of sectors in particular. Yeah.
Well, let's take your fitness hat off now, and let's put your marriage hat on now. So, how long have you been married now then?
So it'll be 3 years in December, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we're in our 17th year, so just to give you, I'm further down the road than you, right?
Yeah. Well done, yeah.
Any tips, don't ask me, because I'm still working out.
Now, I think that's it, isn't it? It's a constant battle, and it evolves, doesn't it? Battles, maybe.
I want to use the right word.
Yeah, sorry. Battle. Yeah. It's a developmental process, isn't it? You change as people, the environment around you changes, and the things that you do change. So, yeah, you have to learn to sort of be fluid with that at the time. Yeah.
And your wife now, who was your girlfriend beforehand, How important is it for you as a business owner that she also is an entrepreneur and she has a business? Because I'm sure if one was corporate and one is an entrepreneur, which me and my wife were originally, she never understood that sometimes I have to work weekends, I have to work in the evenings, I have to do certain things that she can do a 9 to 5 and switch off. Well, it's never been like that for me. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. So I knew that I have to do certain things because my dad was also an entrepreneur. I was. So, I've only ever seen that around me. So now she is as well. So she gets it that sometimes you have to switch a laptop on a Saturday morning and do certain things on a Sunday and things like that. And it's good to be in that space where we can give each other space. So I'll be like, so I'm doing this now with you. She's with the kids downstairs and stuff like that. So it's nice to have that balance. What's the importance of compromise in marriage? Because for me, that's always been the key word.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, for me personally, it's been massively important. I mean, firstly, my wife is massively supporting of everything that I do. And I wouldn't have had anywhere near the level of sort of success, I guess, so far without her support. It's been, key to everything that I do. But yeah, I think her running her own business, I think she totally gets the pressures that come with that. Like you say, the sort of slightly unpredictable hours, the having to sort of switch on and off a lot. And we're both very client interfacing in the jobs that we do. So again, she understands that the pressures that brings of dealing with people's and their emotions a lot. But equally, I think we're very good at sort of turning around and being quite blunt about it at some point and being like, hang on, this isn't important right now. This could wait till then, or I'll support you to a point, but it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. That can wait, Matt, can't it? And then, sometimes you need that as well. You need someone to turn around and go, stop working for a bit, chill out, spend some time with your son or with me or whatever. And I think we are both good at doing that. But I mean, she understands it. I mean, she runs a ballet school, and I remember her being in labour and having parents phone her to ask her questions. So she's had extreme examples as well. So she gets it. She knows what it's like. She's very, very supportive. And I think that compromise is key. She knows that, business is important to me. And I think that's a good quality. I think that she sees that that's a good quality for me to have, and for our son to see that in both of us, I think is important. But at the same time, it's important to try to have a little bit of balance about that as well. And we try to be good about that. If there's not work on, if we don't need to be on our phones, they're away, let's put them in the other room. If we're in the garden, we're in the garden, the phones are away or the laptop's away. So when you are present, we are 100% present rather than sort of wishy-washy in between the two.
Yeah. Now that I know your wife is an entrepreneur, I'm going to have to get her on the podcast to also ask her for me. And to get the other side of the argument, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but she is Australian, so you're going to have to put subtitles on if that I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good, because last week we did. I had a family member of mine who's from Texas, America. So first international guest, so we can get another international guest. Spread the love around the world, right?
Exactly.
So, stepping aside from marriage, it's important to have people we love around us. What does self-love mean to you?
I think it's important. I was filming a YouTube video the other day, and actually in a positive context, I used the word selfish, because for me, actually being a little bit selfish is quite a positive trait. I think for us to achieve anything, we need to have a level of that, whether that's, in my life, whether that's been professional dance or in business, there's times where you need to be but actually on the flip side of that, when you are quite selfish, you're actually quite giving on the other side. I know that sounds like a complete oxymoron, but I think by me completely committing to my business and to being successful in that, on the other side, it means that I can provide for my family and give them opportunities that we might not have had otherwise. So I think it is important that, you care about yourself, you look after yourself, whether that's in a physical form or, your feelings of being proud of what you've done and what you've achieved. So I think it's a very key element. And I think that probably comes from my days of being a bit more of a professional athlete and dance is, you spend all day staring at yourself in the mirror. If you don't sort of love yourself and support yourself, it can be quite a dark and depressing place. And I've been in that world, and I've seen it for myself, and I've seen it amongst colleagues and friends. You've got to be your own number one fan first, because other members of your company might not necessarily be that because they want the same roles, or you might have a coach that might not view you in that way. So if you're not supporting yourself, and you're not going to be that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but the majority of the time you've got to back yourself up, because otherwise not many other people are going to do it for you. And, close friends, family, yes, but not necessarily always colleagues or even mentors and coaches.
It's that value of time, isn't it? It's where you value your own time and you're not willing to just give that away for nothing, right? And I think it's so important if people, I know people around me that almost are available all the time, to do everything. And it's so nice to have people who are so helpful. But sometimes I even say to them, you need to sometimes say no. Because when you say no to other people, you're saying yes to yourself. Because by saying yes to everyone else, what time do you have for yourself to sort of recharge, grow, learn, and become a better version of yourself? So when people do ask, you're even a higher version of yourself, right? And I come from quite a big family, and we've always sort of had to fight for our time in terms of, airtime and airspace and things like that. But one thing I feel that I've become good at is keeping my head down. So, working so much on myself that I almost have no time to look around me. But if someone does call out for me and says, Bav, I need some help, I'm there 100%, because that's the way I've been raised. But I'm not necessarily going to come to you and say, Matt, do you need any help? Because I'm so busy working on myself to try and be, the best version of myself. So when Matt does call and say, Bav, I need a hand, I'm there and I can give it the best I can, right? And I think it's having that value, isn't it? It's valuing yourself and you, the version of you. And like you said, it's loving yourself as well, because it's not just saying, I appreciate my time, but I appreciate me as a person, and my opinion of myself is higher than anyone's opinion of me. So therefore, any decisions I make are for the best for me and the people around me, right?
Yeah. If I'm not the best version of me and feeling proud of that and being aware of that and physically well and mentally well, et cetera, how can I expect my son to view me that way, my wife to view me that way? So by doing that for yourself, even though it feels like maybe a partially selfish act, it means that I'm a better person for them. And that can only be a good thing, in my opinion.
It's so important because, like self-care and self-love come across, don't they? They come across in your energy. You just have to room. You don't even have to speak. And just the way you carry yourself and the energy we give off, we live as humans by our five senses, but that sixth and seventh sense of feeling and energy, I think, are so important, especially, I'm sure there's been times when you've walked into a room and you felt something's not right here without anyone saying anything. And likewise, when it's a high energy, you feel it before you even go in and say, this is going to be a good, I've sensed that, I feel that as you get older, you sense it and feel it more and you appreciate it more because you're in touch with that side of you a little bit more. When you're younger, it's sort of, I think, it's honing that skill to say, I like some, it's like in your business as well, Matt, right? So you may have a client and something in your gut tells you, I'm not sure about this, but you carry on anyway because you say, I'm still going to take it on. And then later you think, actually, maybe that wasn't, I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I've learned that. Maybe I don't need that kind of client or, someone who's drained me that much. And there's other times where you say, it doesn't make sense for me to take this client on, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it's because your gut told you, yes, do it. And it comes out the other side, you say, that was probably the best experience I've had, even though it doesn't make sense for me logically, financially, whatever it may be. And I think that grows over time. As you get older, you learn about that more and more, and you trust yourself a bit more, and you trust that energy within you, right? So moving forward from that, so now we're talking about you being a dad. So, like I said, you're 2 years into that journey, and, that journey started 2 years and 9 months ago, or whatever long, your wife's been pregnant, etc. Now, how do you think that's changed you as a man being a dad?
It's definitely made me a better person, 100%. It's made me more patient. It's just made me generally a bit more relaxed, which I think sometimes parenthood turns you the other way, that you're sleep deprived or this or that. But actually, once I step through the front door, I'm a lot more relaxed. It's hard not to, my son's amazing and very happy and very, chilled out. And it's hard for that not to come onto me, even if I've had a terrible day. So I'm a lot more relaxed, a lot more chilled, a lot more patient, all of those things that I wasn't necessarily before, especially patience. And my wife will probably argue that I've still got a way to go on that, but it has definitely improved me. It made me want to be a better person so I can be a better role model for him, to provide for him, to show him that sort of anything is possible. So it changed me in a big way. We're actually having another baby in 2 weeks' time. So
oh wow,
we will actually see, what happens then, whether that ramps up a little bit. But no, I love being a dad. I was really, really excited to be a dad. Very fortunate, and I think undoubtedly it has made me a better person. I think it's made me very conscious of my own time, my own feelings, and where my priorities lie. Definitely, you don't faff about with things that aren't that important, or even the tasks that you want to do, whether that's for your business or personally or whatever. You either go all in and commit, or you don't bother wasting the time. For me personally now, so if a business opportunity comes along that I'm not really into, I'm not going to do it, because I'd rather spend that time with my son, or, so I think it actually makes you very committed, very efficient in the things that you do, because you want to get it done, and you want to get it done, not rushed, but efficiently, so that the time that you do have is spent in the right places.
And it's funny, isn't it? If you don't, like my sister, she doesn't have any kids, when we do. And for me, 7 o'clock is a line. Right? I remember before kids, you could be in bed till 11, 12 o'clock if you really wanted to, right? Without struggle. And now it's like, I don't know what a line is. 7 o'clock is a line for me, right? So it's interesting. Another thing I will tell you, you said your first child has been great. You've learned a lot, and it's been not difficult, where you've adapted and you've grown with the child. The second one will throw the whole span in the works, and I'll tell you that's straightforward. Just as you think it's, we can do this, we've done it once, let's do it again. Everything will change on the second one, trust me. I think the second one almost is I think the universe gives you a first child to say, we can do this, no problem. And then the second one's like...
Otherwise, no one would ever do it again, would they? Yeah. No, I agree. And actually, I mean, he's taught me a lot, and there's a lot at this age up to 2, it's just repetitive tasks. A lot of it, obviously, there's some big emotional connection and all of that. But actually, when I speak to clients that have kids that are slightly older, and again, you might be able to tell me a bit more about this. The bigger challenges I see are actually more when you shape that person as a human being, the emotional connection, when you're making decisions around their emotions and how they interact with the world and how they see that. He's 2 at the moment. He doesn't necessarily have an view on politics or his emotions or all of those things. He's happy or he's sad. It's actually, I think when the complexities of that come as they start to come into young teens and young adulthood, I think that's going to be really interesting for me, because I'm going to find that more of a challenge and very, very difficult of how I cope with shaping that human being, definitely.
And one thing, what will happen when, I mentioned this a lot, there's so much you're going to need to unlearn. We've been raised by loving parents, with siblings, and you have learned so much from the way they've raised you. But as life goes on, so much changes. The environment changes, technology changes, and the way we live our lives. That was great for that time, and now you're going to have to adapt and unlearn a lot to allow new learnings to come in, right? So it's like my daughter, my son, we never had phones growing up. My first phone came at university, which is, my final year at university. Now, my daughter's sort of got a phone from 11 years old when she started high school. So that's another, a whole huge kettle of fish. Are their minds ready for so much information being poured in at such a young age, and bringing on all the things of anxiety, depression, body image, all these things. And that's a battle for us as parents. How do we keep a level of normality? Whereas I prefer her not to have a phone. I don't think they're ready at that age, but the problem is that with the safety and security of, because she goes to school,
that trade-off, isn't it?
Yeah, she goes to school on the bus on her own. If she needs anything, she needs to be able to contact us. But then that comes with that social media, comes with that friends, comes with that Snapchat, whatever it is. And at what point is it a fine line balance? Say, actually, she needs some social credit in terms of being around her friends because all her friends have it, and what does it become then an addiction, that because she doesn't know how to handle having so much information coming into her, right? So that's, as parents now, that's what I'm dealing with right now. You know, she's in GCSE year now. So it's trying to keep her focused and on that. And you're going to probably go through the same things, if not more, because the way technology is going, it seems to be more and more entwined into our lives, right? And as a parent, I think it's interesting because you always try and make the best decisions until they turn around and say, actually, I didn't like that. And you're like, whoa. Whoa, where do I go with this, right?
Exactly.
So it is nice, you know, right now, you know, they're young, enjoy it. Because, and it becomes better and better and better. Like I said, when, you know, as they get past 5 or 6, when they start having opinions, like my son's just started doing fantasy football now.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So he has his own team and we have a little battle. We play.
It's all good till he beats you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we play FIFA together and he's like beating me all the time. So they're the, you know, where the bonding comes in and they become their own people, and then they sort of start distancing themselves to try and learn a little bit about themselves. And I'm more of a hands-off parent. So I like them to try and fall down. I want them to fall. I want them to learn. And I want them to stand back up again. And you know, because for me, that's the best way. Whereas you might be more, let's wrap them up a bit. Let's, you know, let's protect them. No one knows. There's no, you know, like, you know, there's no rule book, is there? There's
exactly.
You know, there's no manual. So just in your life as a fitness professional, as a business owner, do you have any non-negotiables that you will not compromise on?
Yeah, so I think there's probably certain standards of service where I deliver to my clients that I wouldn't go believe. You know, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm very firm on that. So even if that's as basic as I'm going to get this program over to you, or this or that, or we'll do this session, I'm very true to my word on that. I won't negotiate on that. And I guess as well, in terms of my own training as well. Yeah, that hour that I train in the gym, that is my time. I won't give that up, regardless of what anyone asks me. It might move around the day, but that's like my time to like de-stress and chill out and do whatever I want in the gym without people bothering me. And
what kind of things, or what thing do you think right now is holding you back from your greatness?
So I've just started reading, have you read the E-Myth Revisited?
Yeah.
So I think I still a lot in my head, and I think some of this comes down from my dancing days as well. I still very much view myself as the technician. So in this book, they talk about, you know, the technician and the entrepreneur. And I think sometimes I still view myself a bit, you know, I can do that part of the business, delivering one-to-one training or whatever. And I think sometimes I very much view myself as that person rather than the next level up. And I think that's something that is adapting over time, but definitely needs more work. And I think some of that comes from dancing as well. You know, you're so dictated to by your director of, you know, how you have your hair cut, how you know, come to the studio, when, how often. It's so dictated to you that I think sometimes I fall back into that a little bit.
So do you feel that to grow yourself professionally, do you think that you need to take a step back from the one-to-ones and the face-to-face and stuff and start working on the business, or do you think that's still always going to be key?
Definitely. I think it's more about compiling that team around you, and there'll be people that will do that job better than you or as well as you, or will bring a different element to that. And I think sometimes we're reluctant to see that.
And what skills do you still think you need to grow, master, or learn to become the next version of yourself?
I think time management, but not necessarily time management as in structuring your day, but until things get urgent, like there's a deadline, a clear deadline, I can leave them a bit. They can sit around a bit, just sort of stewing. Whereas I think sometimes, just a bit of urgency around, okay, this isn't necessarily due tomorrow, I can wait a week, but why not do it today? Why not be a bit more urgent with it? And I think some of that comes down to, unfortunately things go well, there's a bit of success. So maybe there's not that hunger and that need to do it as instantaneously as maybe there should be sometimes.
Perfect. Now, is there anything that you're proud of about yourself which no one else knows?
In general, the success I had when I was 18, I remember going to an audition and being told by a director that I didn't have the physique to be a classical ballet dancer. and to carve out a 10-year career. And I didn't disagree with them. But, I don't have an amazing physique and facility for classical dance. But to carve out a 10-year career and get jobs and always get work and get great roles, I'm pretty proud of that. So I think people think I'm proud of my career, but probably not on the level that, when you've been told that you probably won't get to that. To actually then achieve that, I think that's quite rewarding.
And, to flip that on its head, has there been any sort of heartache and trauma that's gone on in your life which has created the version of you that I see here today?
I think probably a little bit. I lived in Germany for sort of 6.5, 7 years. I was over there a long time. And then before that, sort of very committed to my training in London. I think there's regret about not spending more time with friends and family around me, especially ones that are maybe not here anymore. I probably look back on and go, I should have made more use of that time then, rather than, we spoke about being selfish earlier, but I think sometimes I was a little bit selfish to my career and to progressing that maybe not took for granted, but I didn't spend enough time with friends and family. And yeah, certain members of my family that I miss a lot now, that I wish at the time that I'd got more from them, definitely.
And from the short conversation we've had already, I think it's clear to me that family is quite important to you, in terms of the people around you, the people that care for you, the people that love you. So can you go a little bit into that in terms of your growing up and your role in the family and how it serves you today?
So I'm the very typical youngest child. I'm youngest of 4, 3 older siblings. So yeah, I am probably a bit cheeky. Probably got away with stuff that I shouldn't have done as youngest children do. So that probably is a bit reflected in me as an adult. But yeah, family was very, very important. There was always lots of us. There was 6 of us just as our family. So that was always very important to us, and having people around and looking after each other. From a sporting perspective, I was very lucky to have good influences. As I said, my uncle was a good tennis player, good tennis coach. My granddad probably would have played cricket for England had it not been for the Second World War breaking out. So I've always had sort of influences like that I've looked up to. My grandparents were entrepreneurs. They ran their own business. So I think having people around that have influenced me in both how to be as a person and also how to be as a sort of business owner or an athlete, or to always sort of work hard, be ambitious, try anything.
And if we talk about sort of the universe and the energy that we've created and why we're here, what's your view on your role within this game called life? How do you see yourself giving service to everyone around you? And that being fulfillment of the universe and the plan of why you're here?
I mean, unfortunately, I spend a lot of time interacting with other people, and I think always trying to be as positive as possible, I think is a great attitude to have, because I think other people will feed off that and will reciprocate as well. So, if somebody, I have clients that come in and see me after a terrible day at work or whatever, stressed, if by the end of that hour I can make them feel a bit better, that they can go into this world feeling a little bit more positive, a little bit more, kind to other people, and fitter and healthier, obviously, then I feel like I've achieved something through that. So I think, I'm trying to do that now with, my own kids, and obviously my wife's business is all sort of very focused around children, about trying to, positive attitudes amongst, children, and how they think about themselves, and exercise and dance and movement and all of those things that, I don't envisage that, we work with nearly 100 students at our dance school. I imagine a tiny, tiny percent of that might ever go into an arts or a culture job, but the skills and the thoughts and feelings that arts and culture provide to young minds, I think is unparalleled, even amongst sort of sport and athletics. I think so many skills that they can learn from that, and that will transcend to them being into adults. I mean, I think about our own wedding, and my wife had 10 friends that she did ballet with when she was 5, 6 years old. Those are friendships that have lasted an entire lifetime. And not all of them have gone into sort of professional dance careers, but it's definitely shaped who they are as human beings, definitely.
And from your professional hat, for people who are listening that, life seems a bit tough at the moment, it's quite stressful out there, and in terms of thought processes, what would your key thing, if you can give a couple of pointers to get them out of their chair and moving, what little things can they do to start start moving in the arena of fitness? Because for me, motion's always created motion. So once you start moving, you just continue, don't you?
Exactly. You build that momentum, that sense of inertia, don't you? I think some people get daunted by it and try to do too much too soon, or think they need to go from 0 to 100 straight away. If anything, like the simplest things, stick some headphones in, go out for a 20-minute walk, a 30-minute walk, find somewhere nice, a park near you, especially now we've still holding on some nice weather here in the UK, unbelievably. Get outside for sort of 20 minutes. Just do that every single day. You'll be amazed how quickly that becomes a habit and how beneficial that is. Daily activity, whether that's just some steps, is massively overlooked, but actually the benefit to your mental health, your physical health, it's huge. Don't instantly go. I think people sort of lace up their shoes and go, "I'm going to go and run a 10K," and 3 days later they can't walk anymore. Like, yeah, don't literally run before you can walk. You spend a week just going out for a walk every day. Little things like that. Again, on the flip side, nutrition. People try and change everything overnight. Go from eating whatever they are eating to eating 3 broccoli heads. No, just have some sense about it. So find some foods that you like that are nutrient dense, that are going to provide, porridge oats, something like as simple as that, and just enjoy that for a week for your breakfast with some nice blueberries. Don't try and change your entire life overnight. It's not sustainable. You won't enjoy it, and you won't make long-term changes.
And that, over my fitness journey, that's exactly what you've said there is the way I did it. Change one thing at a time, see if it sticks, and if it doesn't, adapt it and change. Because like you said, you try and do all in one go, the brain won't allow you to do it. It'll just push you back to the comfort zone and safety of what it knows, which is sitting on a sofa and watching TV, right?
Yeah.
What if you can get up?
I think that's too daunting. That's too hard. I can't do that again. This killed me 3 days ago. I'm not going to do that. No, then don't. Start slowly, build habits, build things that are going to be sustainable, that in a year's time you can still see yourself doing that. If you can't, then why are you trying to start doing it now? It won't become a long-term success. And I think, it's the nature of the environment. We're all in a little bit that we want everything on demand, straight away, instantaneous. But health and fitness doesn't work like that, unfortunately. We can't do that. It's not like an Amazon delivery. It takes time, and especially people that, are maybe even more out of shape. If you think how long it took you years-wise to get out of shape, you're not going to reverse all of that in a week. You have to accept that challenge is going to take a little bit longer. Of course, no one wants it to take longer than it should, and there are little tips and tricks and shortcuts that we can all integrate into our lives, but you can't expect the entire process to just happen overnight. That's not realistic.
And I think it's changing the mindset as well, isn't it? To say it needs to be a lifestyle, not a diet. It needs to be a long drawn out process as opposed to a short quick fix, because the short quick fix will never stay, will it?
Exactly.
And if you give yourself patience and say it's going to take time, discipline to say every day I have to try and do something, or every week I have to try and do something, and focus to say why am I doing it? Keeping those 3 things in your head at all times, I think, are so useful. The key word, like you said earlier, about learning about patience. I think patience is the superpower for everything. Understanding certain things are just going to take time. Let them take time, because we are here for quite a long time. So just do those little things every day, right? And I think, I'm sure you as a fitness professional, things are gonna, if we move little things, you come to lift 100 kg weight, start with 1 and then move on to 2, then move on to 3 and have the 100 in mind, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as we head over to the end of the conversation here, Matt, I'd like to thank you for your time. I'm sure we're going to do this again, and we'll look more into detail in a few more things. But I just wanted to ask you a couple more questions, so people really understand you as a person and understand where you come from, right? So now, what we're going to do, project 200 years in the future, where you're at the end of your days now. You've done everything you've wanted to do. You've lived the life you want to live. You've had 15 kids, and you've looked after all of them, and they're all on the football pitches together, right? And you've grown gyms all around the world. So everything is done that you've wanted to do. You've written books. You've done everything, right? So now you're lying down, or you're sitting down. You've got not enough energy to speak, but you've got a pen and a paper and people around you have asked you to write 3 words. Those 3 words have resonated with you and they've helped you in your life. What would those 3 words to be for you and why?
Just work hard. I know it sounds a little bit remedial, and I've been thinking about this a little bit, and again, it's a bit of a cheesy quote, but the harder I work, the luckier I get. And a lot of my success I put down to working hard. Now, you need to be smart about that. There's no good sort of, for now working really hard trying to set up blockbusters when that's obviously not going to work, So you need to put that energy in the right place. But I've always worked hard, whatever I've done, despite maybe being told you won't be able to do this or that won't work. Like, I think just work hard. It does pay off. Not always instantaneously. It might take longer than you think. And, as I say, I've just opened my first gym. I've been in this profession 5 years. It's taken me maybe a little bit longer than maybe I first predicted or I first thought, but I've always worked hard and the opportunities have come. So, yeah, it's not maybe the most sort of deep philosophical advice, but I think, 100% I agree with the harder you work, the luckier you get, the more opportunities that come your way, the more people you meet, the more, more chances you get to get things right. Try and be smart about it. Try not to, work too hard in the wrong direction. But those things are going to happen as well. The mistakes are going to happen. You will learn from those as well. And you'll go, I won't do that next time. Or I'll pay somebody else to make that mistake for me or make that mistake faster. But I think you can't get away from the fact that at some point you are going to have to put some hard graft into something to achieve anything.
And from that, the key phrase that's always stuck to me is opportunity meeting preparation is where luck lies, right? Luck is opportunity meeting preparation, and preparation is the hard work you put in. And I think you're on the same page with that. So thank you for that. Now this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and right now you're bigger than the world. So this mic now I've sourced is connected to 7.58 billion people on this planet. They're all awake. They can all hear you. There's no language barrier, and they're all conscious. If I gave you that mic for 30 seconds, what would your message be to the world?
Let's be kinder to each other. Let's be more positive. Let's look after one another. Let's try to build senses of community again. Although the world is a big place and we can all interact with each other, I think sometimes we lose sight of actually the people around us and trying to build a local community. I know this is something we're definitely very conscious of trying to do with my business, of integrating with people locally. And I think some of that will correspond as well with the environment as well. I think looking at the world as one big united place is great, but actually I think by trying to spread too far away from that, I think actually we're doing quite a lot of damage to the environment. So the more we can be satisfied in our own communities that we're building, I think will help with the environment, with being kinder with each other, and being more positive in general.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matt. Such mature words from a young, and you've got so much further too. So you've got your wife is lucky, your kids are lucky to have you.
I'm not sure about that.
Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
No, I think that's about it. I think we've covered everything, to be honest.
That's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up your show note, your details on the show notes. If anyone wants to follow you, anyone wants to learn anything more, I'm sure you'd be happy to have a conversation with anyone that's listening.
Yeah, 100%.
And if they want to follow you, they can get on board.
It'd be amazing.
So thank you again so much for your time. I always pray before we start a podcast to the words that we've shared today reach all the people it needs to reach, to try and make it a little bit easier in their life, on their journey, to take something away and hopefully help everyone. So thank you so much.
Not a problem at all.
Now, just before we go, just a quick thought for everyone listening out there. Big energy leads to big thoughts. Big thoughts lead to big ideas. Big ideas lead to big actions. And big actions lead to a big life. So keep thinking big. Until next week, see you later. Bye-bye.
Ultimately, you'll get more with a kind word than you will shaking a fist.